everybody, Venus Valentine here, and today I'm going to be talking about corsets and the art of burlesque. Now, if you aren't already familiar with burlesque, it is basically a striptease dance that originates in sort of an old Hollywood vaudevillian sort of style. Burlesque has many faces, from neo-burlesque, which is more modern. It's like nerdlesque, so if you see Star Wars or a horror movie or something, that kind of falls into neo. And more performance art based, I'd say, more no rules at all. And then there is more leaning towards the classic burlesque side of the spectrum, which is what I tend to be on, which is the feathers, the sparkles, the very classic bump and grind movements with the very classic songs. And that's, like I said, that's what I tend to lean towards, but it's such a wide spectrum and you can really fall anywhere on it, or you can do classic and neo, so it really is up to the burlesque dancer themselves. Now, corsets are one of the most popular pieces of lingerie to wear in burlesque dancing because it kind of originates in bondage fetishism. So in BDSM, the B stands for bondage, and it's a really popular fetish. They like to have their submissive kind of tied up and kept helpless, and a corset in a way accentuates that because you're really tight-laced, you can't move too much. There's also bondage shoes. These are ballet fetish heels, and I consider them the corsets of the feet because unless you're a very, very, very skilled person, and I've seen it happen a couple times, you really can't walk in these. So in a way, it's sort of the same idea of keeping someone in bondage and the arousal that comes from that. Now, in another way, corsets are used in burlesque a lot because it's just another piece of clothing to take off, honestly. The more pieces of clothing you have on, the more you take off, the more exciting your performance is. So people normally don't walk around with, high satin gloves every day, but during a burlesque performance we might, because it just is more sensical to the viewer and to us to not come out there already in a bra and panties and then we don't have a lot to take off. Now, some people do that and that's completely fine, but I think that part of the reason why corsets are so popular is because it just gives an extra little piece to play with. So the last point I'd like to touch on in corsets in burlesque is the types. Now, if you've been on True Corsets website or you've watched these videos, you know there's endless types of corsets. There's endless ways to wear your corset. Some dancers tight lace, like Dita Monteith and Violet Chachki. They both tight lace and they have tiny itty bitty little waist. And I personally can't tight lace because of medical issues. So when I wear my corset on stage, it's just a couple inches smaller and I'm only really wearing it for the first part of my performance. So that's one way to change it up. And then also the type of corset you wear. So for my classic lilac performance, I wear a small corset. It's a waspy, and it's from True Corset, and I'll show you in a minute. I embellished it completely on my own with Swarovski crystals, which I'll get to in a second. But for me, a waspy seemed more efficient for my costume. It just flowed together with the rest of it a little bit more. And as I can't tight lace, I feel like a waspy just gives a tighter look without your corset being super tight. So this is my corset. It is a size 24, I believe, and I'm really wishing I got a size 22 now. If I watched the True Corset video on how to choose my corset size, I would have known, but I didn't. So anyways, this is my corset. As you can see, it is completely embellished with Swarovski crystals. It did take me a while, and then I also replaced the laces on the back. Now, this is an extremely common practice in burlesque. We all tend to be pretty crafty folks. So glittering or adding embellishments, whether it's rhinestones or crystals or sequins, is really, really, really common because it just adds another layer of glamour to the outfit. Now, when you're on stage and you're wearing your very sparkly corset, it brings more attention to that section of you. And the whole point of burlesque for me is fantasy and, of course, the art of the tease. And no one is walking around in everyday life, like I mentioned earlier, wearing a Swarovski bedazzled corset. So when you're on stage and the lights are hitting you and it just looks so beautiful, it's an element of fantasy. It's an element of this would never happen in real life. This is what I'm watching now and it's beautiful.